evening. Welcome to the Cheltenham Exchange November meeting preview with two very esteemed special guests, Scotty Ruderham and Dave Cheltmental, and of course the Rain Man and John the Hammer. Matty's on a train somewhere, and we don't know what's going on with Alex, do we?
Is he in London?
Is he? Oh, he's in London. Is he in London asking where Blazing
work trip
going? Where the Blazing Cows staying hurdling or going over the
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this is our preview for the November meeting, and we'll crack on without further ado. So very badly prepared. We're going to do 3 races on Friday, 4 on Saturday, and 3 on Sunday, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, crack on. The first race we're going to look at on Friday is the second race of the day, Paddy Power handicap chase over 2 miles. Class 2 race. Monsieur Lecoq probably going to go off like a scolded cat and run everything into the ground, possibly.
Come on, Davy boy, you like that horse.
So yeah, Scotty, give us your thoughts to begin with. Thoughts even.
Friday. Looking at the prices, I think Amarillo Sky. I think what was he in the Grand Annual, wasn't he? He came, I think, 5th when there was absolutely dodgy ground that day. He's a consistent horse, but I just think he might need to run first time, and I just wonder whether he'll go for something like later in the season that might protect his mark a bit. I'm looking at the Glancing Queen. I think she's probably the most solid on form, and she's 9-2. And I think with there being 9 runners in the race, I think she's just of interest of a tiny little win, but I wouldn't be bothered at all in the race. I mean, she's carrying 12 stone. It's going to be a hard ask, but it's just nothing in the race. I think even Captain Tomcat ran in the old road the other day, and he was just absolutely battered in that. Grey Diamond, I'm not a fan of. A small, tiny little, even a place. Sometimes you don't have to get the winner, just a place, solid place bet. With Glancing Queen, you might get 5 to 6 round evens on the day. Probably just that. I'm not interested in the race, to be honest.
Dave, nodding there, similar.
I mean, yeah, Scotty's nailed it. Like, it's a pretty. I mean, this is words in his mouth, but it's a pretty like boring race for like trying to get excited about finding a winner in it. I think it is fairly competitive, but they've all got chinks. I think the one that's winding up the most, you did mention it, Monsieur Lecoq going off like a scolded cat. He needs it soft. That's like the ground's been way too quick for him, and that does reflect it in the price. But everyone's creaming all over this Grey Diamond. They faced each other at Ascot, and Monsieur Lecoq was 5 lengths clearer, and Grey Diamond doesn't jump very well. There's a massive price discrepancy between the two of them. So, I mean, I do like Monsieur Lecoq, but he's probably got no chance. And I couldn't back anything else in the race just in case the ground isn't the be-all and end-all, because he's put a couple of good efforts up on better ground, but he needs it soft. So I don't really want to have an interest in this race, so I'm going to butt on it.
Okay, nice one. Ian?
Yeah, I echo what some of the lads have done. I'm potentially going to do a reverse forecast. So I'll Greyhound bet. So there's 2. So one is the guys have said Glancing Queen. So it's only going up a couple of pounds since she won. She was carrying about 11-12. She's a Class 1 winner in the past. I think she'll still be the classiest horse despite all the weight she's carrying. The other one I like is Melistic. Going back over to 2 miles, as had previous attempts at 2-4 and 2-2. Very rarely out the top 3 in Class 1 and 2 races. Had a second at Kelsa, I think at the beginning of October, to Gold de Bois, I think, who was also in the race, but Gold de Bois was carrying a feather that day. So Melistic's now gone up £8 to 11.13. So they would potentially be the 2 I would look at. So maybe have a small reverse forecast for them too, but echo what the guy says, it's a bit of a poxy race, to be honest.
Peter Niven horse.
Yes.
Yeah. Not saying anything. John?
Well, it's a shame Matty's not on, really, isn't it? Because he loves Lecoq, doesn't he? We always say. Gotta get that one in. I actually quite like Gold de Bois in this for Ian Jardine. I mean, he's an ex-Gordon Elliott horse, isn't he? He has got a bit to find, I think, with the top weight Glancing Queen, who's probably rightful favourite. But he is improving each race, and also he does like to get his head in front. I think he's won 3 chases now. and he's placed 5 times in 12 starts, so he's got a decent record. So I think an each way bet on him is the way to go. I think he was 14-1 when I originally wrote this, but I think he's into tens now with 365. He does make the odd mistake, but he likes to be ridden handy as well. So I don't mind that as much when they're ridden handy, so not losing too much ground generally. So I think each way, Gold de Bois, decent bet in this one.
He can still get 16s, John, I think.
Oh, can you? No, it was 10s and
Yeah.
365. So that's good. I might take a bit of that tonight then. Who was that with, Ian?
Coral.
All right, okay.
Okay. Gold de Bois
good.
for John. Nothing too strong really for anyone else. Not the best of races. Jardine's horses are running well anyway, aren't they? I think so.
Yeah.
For you, John.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. He's in form as well. So
Okay, thank you. Right, move swiftly along to the 220. Is it 220? Yeah, 220.
Yeah.
Class 3 novice handicap chase over 2.5 miles. And yeah, all I've put is I don't really know anything about any of these. There's a couple of Irish in there, but yeah, again, no idea. So, Dave, we'll go with you first.
Nice one. Well, this is definitely better than the previous race we covered. And I like the fact we picked out 3 and then the first race was a bit of a one. But this one's got a tiny bit more for the fact that Banbridge isn't declared, which everyone was expected to happen. And that's annoyed me more than anything because the 143 definitely looked like it would have been a light mark for him to go and win off. But if it was that light, they would have run him in it. Like they put him in the Arkle trial. I don't know what's going on with him, but I would have been keen to take him anyway. Obviously, he's not running, so that's short on the price of everything else. But the one I was fairly sweet on, and I'll still stick with it because he's not very well supported in the market at the minute, is Hereditary Rule for John McConnell and Daryl Jacob. This horse has put up a couple of Racing Post ratings of 143, which was the same as what Banbridge did on his chase debut. But this horse has only got a mark of 137 over it. So that's a nice literal number we can chuck in there. This horse has got form over 3 miles, like definitely stays. His jumping's pretty tidy as well. He's had 6 spins over fences, 13 of them were over hurdles before. But there's one of his 143 runs a couple of times back at Perth. I mean, it's a pretty crap race. The Northern Circuit is useless, but the horse that won that race came out and franked it, came out and won, I think, either the time after or the second time after running. I reckon that was a pretty good effort. And before he did that at Perth, Daryl Jacob rode him at Ayr, where he basically just won in a canter. So I think, no offence to the jockeys that have been on since, Brian Hayes rode him at Bellewstown, I think it was, and that's like, he's obviously a decent jock. But since then, there's been claimers and stuff on there that have still won out of him. But I just think someone like Daryl Jacob will get the best out of him. He is like 7-2, but I think he might drift out. He's going to be a muggy each way because it is the dead 8 in it. I reckon Hereditary Rule will definitely be in the places. So I'd be fairly sweet on him. I do think he'll win. He might be like susceptible to something slightly less exposed, but I don't like this unanswered prayers that everyone's creaming about. He hasn't gone over fences yet. I don't think he's that good. He's being well supported. His price is too short now. So Hereditary Rule would probably be my second strongest fancy of the day. It's my biggest fancy for the next race.
Scotty?
Yeah, one at a decent price. I think that's ran an absolute shocker last time. It's only made his chase debut. It was at Uttoxeter a few weeks ago, and it's for Milton Harris. It's a Stimulating Song. This is literally going to be his second run in 2 years, and he won at this meeting 2 years ago. It was a handicap hurdle, and in that race, he was mixing it with some decent horses. I know it's hurdles to chase; it's different form, but Captain Tomcat, top of the Cotswolds, son of Camas, they're all pretty handy hurdlers in their day. And obviously, Captain Tomcat's a half-decent chaser. I just think that run over 2 miles at Uttoxeter, he was just absolutely taken off his feet. I think at the meeting 2 years ago, he won over 2.5. 2-4, and I think just a totally different race tomorrow. If he settles and he jumps well, I think at 11-1 for Milton Harris, who obviously knows how to train winners at Cheltenham in November, I think he could be a little sneaky one to get a place, possibly, just because I don't really fancy anything else in the race. And I think, like Dave said, a lot of the runners in here are not. Obviously, there's a couple of debutants in there. I'd take a chance on him just to bounce back here, and obviously with the course form, that's just what I see the angle in the race, to be honest.
Like it. Ian?
I'm going to take a chance on Hooligan Green for, I think it's Fergal and Paddy.
Yeah.
So So it was third in its last race at Cheltenham. I know it was about 15 lengths behind, but I think it was was carrying 10-3 that day. I think he could potentially get better for that chase. What interested me was the back form from when he was hurdling last season. So won a novice hurdle at Newbury in December by 2.25 lengths. In behind were Wonderwall and Shearer. So Wonderwall come out and won, and since then Shearer's come out and won 3 of the last 4. Was also 4th behind Hillcrest in January. So Hillcrest went on to win again, but unfortunately got injured. And then I think one of the other races prior to the festival, there was Iron Maximus and Get a Tonic, I think, ran quite well behind Pull Again Green. So basically that's how it come about. So the form interested me. I think he will run better for his second chase run. So hopefully Paddy will do the business for me.
Shearer's running Saturday as well, I was thinking it.
Yeah. So say if Pull Again Green wins well, you could frank the form for Shearer again.
Cool. John?
Yeah, I'm with Dave on this with Hereditary Rule. I just think McConnell sending him over, you've got to take note of this when he sends him over in these early Cheltenham meetings, the November meeting, the October meeting. Last time out, he won a 15-runner handicap hurdle, and the 4th's come out of that and won as well. Maybe he was trying to protect his mark for this race. I think he's a decent thing in this, to be perfectly honest with him. So Jacob on board, Alex's favourite jockey. So yeah, I think he's a decent price. Like Dave said, if you can get like 4-1 each way, like he's definitely a muggy bet. But I think he's got every chance in this.
Okay, lovely. So Hereditary Rule for John and Dave. Where are we at? Stimulating Song, was it for Scotty? Each way price about 11-1 for Milton Harris. And Pull Again Green for Ian.
Yes.
Been on that.
Thanks, David.
Lovely. Thank you, chaps. Right, on to our last race of day 1. And if I'm not mistaken, we're looking at Ballymore Novices Hurdle, Grade 2 race, 2 miles 5. Mullins has got one in here. As we know, he doesn't know what he's doing. John, go on.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn in this one. I mean, the Mullins factors sort of swayed me in the way of Fabrisco because, you know, we all saw what Dad's lad did last month, didn't we? He came over and I totally ignored that fact that it was his only runner and he went and hacked up. So I'm sort of torn between him and this Hermes Allen for Nichols. But I think the Mullins, you know, sending that one over, I think it's a tip in itself, to be perfectly honest with you. So he's a little bit shorter than I thought, actually. I thought you'd get about 4-1 on him, but is he about 2s now, is he?
Yeah, 2, yeah.
I think when I looked the other day, he might have been a bit like 7-2, 4-1. So maybe the price has gone there now. It might be a bit of a watching race for me, but I'd probably just about side with him. Although Hermes Allen hacked up, didn't he, last time at Stratford, I think, was it? 15 lengths or 20 lengths or something absolutely hacked up. But it's a different test here, obviously. But yeah, I'll go with the Mullins one for this.
Okay, Briscoe, John. Forgot to mention Blazing Cal won this last year. Better not mention.
Of course.
Go on then, Ian.
Right, I want to give one more chance to Music Drive. Now, it does need further, so thank God it's going. I know it's just the extra furlongs, the 2 mile 5. So I'm willing to forgive the previous run. So bollocks to last when he was about 4 lengths down, but he only finished 2 lengths behind the winner Mufasa in the end. So and I thought the interesting factor as well is that Jack Kennedy's back on. I know that Davey was on in the previous run at Cheltenham. But I think the few times that Music Drive has won, Jack's been on board, so it could be a small factor. I wonder if the ground might be that little bit softer than the previous run in October, so that may help. So I looked at what John was saying. I looked at down the field as well. Hermes Allen, maybe won an egg and spoon at Stratford. Habrisco is stepping up 5 furlongs. So the previous runs was at 2 mile. Same for collector's items is stepping up from 2 to 2.5. So again, that could be a factor. And the other, we've all been called, is going to be his first run. So that's part of the reason why I've come down on Music Drive. But the only other one, Quid Pro Quo, was going to be the next big thing. And when it ran in the Class 1, it was absolute dog shit. But it could, it could be one to keep an eye on. But yeah, I'll go with one last chance of Music Drive.
Did you pick Music Drive in the showcase?
I did.
You did.
First time tongue tie and cheek pieces, I just noticed. Getting serious.
Ooh.
Right, our guests. Who wants to go first? And
You go first, Scotty.
Okay. This race for me is a massive. This is going to have a massive impact on like an Ante-Post review for me for looking at something that's going to happen. I go back to what was just said about Quid Pro Quo. He almost went off favourite or was favourite for the Persian War, and he got absolutely dicked. And the horse that came second in that, Outlaw Peter, has come out the other day and absolutely bolted up. So I'm keen to see how that form works out. If Quid Pro Quo runs well, I don't think he ran to his true mark that day or his true ability that day at Chepstow. But if Hermes Allen again goes and absolutely pisses up in this race, who's the better horse out of Hermes Allen and Outlaw Peter? I think they both could be two good horses for Nichols. I don't think they'll be quite Ballymore standard, but I think the form line really lies on Champ Kylie with this Mullins horse for Briscoe, who came third to it, I think, at Tipperary quite recently. I don't know what you all think about Champ Kylie. I've done something stupid, which I never ever do, Ante-Post, and that's back a horse who run really well in a novice hurdle in Ireland over a short trip. You've seen horses like, I think it was Statuaire, we've seen the likes of My Mate Mozzie run really well and absolutely run crap for the rest of the season. But I really like Champ Kylie, so I'm kind of hoping for Briscoe goes out tomorrow and franks the form. For me, it's an absolute no bet race. I'd just be interested just to see how the form works out. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably just go with Hermes Allen just because of how impressive he was the last time.
Interesting. Like that. Dave?
And now for what everyone wanted to hear. I wanted to go last on this one, so I'm glad it's fallen to me last anyway, because I wanted to see what other people's opinions were on some of the horses. Music Drive's got no chance in. He's going to pull up. You called it right with him. He's dog shit. And the form of that race when Mufasa won.
Music Drive is a shit house.
I think Mufasa's rated 134 off the back of that, and Wounded Knee that was 118 rated before, has won a couple of handicaps up in Perth, is now rated 135. That horse will just plummet down the handicaps. I think they probably ran to like 120s tops, not even that. Music Drive's got absolutely no chance, so we can edit and crop that one when he absolutely bolts up. But he's got no chance. Getaway Bromley for Ben Paul and Keenan Woods is another one that's got no chance, but he's the price that he should be. Music Drive should be much bigger. But anyway, Hermes Allen obviously does have the potential to go and do it. It's very difficult to put anything to it. Daryl did the time figures after we recorded the other day and was fully against Hermes Allen after doing the time figures. But those sort of things don't bother me too much, especially when it's first time up and Brian he was on. So he's obviously got the potential to go and do it. Briscoe, again, has got the potential to go and win it. I did sort of think the race was between those two, but price-wise now, I wouldn't want to be backing Hermes Allen. I did talk about playing the pair maybe before, but I haven't backed Briscoe yet, so the price has probably gone. He would be the idea of like a fairly strong bet. So I mentioned it in the last race, like if I was going to have an absolute napo, Briscoe, like he was a bit 5-2 on the exchange before this. I think it is a fair price. I can only see him getting short. Like I could see him going off short. But I'm going to waffle about some other stuff in here. We've all been caught is drifting out a little bit in there and collector's items being backed in. One thing I'd just like to mention with those is obviously we'll look at the odds checker, we'll see the blue lines, all those sort of things going over horses. When this book was first put up, Briscoe, like you said, was 7-2, 4-1. He's been backed in because he should be this sort of price. Collector's item was putting in about 12-1, I think, and we've all been caught was putting it 7-2. Now those horses were very close to each other in a bumper. Collector's items come out and won over a shorter trip. It's going to appreciate the step up in trip. And one was 7-2 and one was 12-1. And obviously one was on hurdle debut that was 7-2. One's already won a race and proved that it can go and do it and was 12-1. So the reason collector's item and has gone in and we've all been caught has come out is just because the prices are wrong to begin with. I don't think they really fancy collector's item, and I don't think they don't fancy we've all been caught. So don't let those market moves sway you into thinking collector's item is a good thing now, or we've all been caught not fancied, because they'll run to their own merit. but their merit's not good enough to win this. I'm glad two of you mentioned quid pro quo as well, because I tweeted when they had the Persian War, Dan Skelton and JP McManus are like, well, Dan Skelton's notorious for punting a horse if they're weak in the market, especially on the exchange late off, got no chance. We know JP will have a few quid off, he fancies it. And I think when everyone looked at the Persian War, I know it's on potential. A lot of people thought that quid pro quo was a good thing at maybe like a 6-4 poker, whatever he was in the morning. Saw loads of people putting him up. And he was short. I think he was even odds on at one point with whether horses came out. But then he did drift out. He went massive on the exchange before, like it's an unbelievable curve. So there was no chance in hell they were trying to do anything with him on that day. Like he wasn't ready, whatever it was. So I'm not saying that he's now going to go and win this, but he's a stupid price because he didn't run to his merit that day. So he's semi-interesting. There's not 8 runners in the race because you can't get the scummy little each way on him. Otherwise, I'd have put him up for that. But I do think it's a really interesting race for the rest of the season. But Music Drive Dog Shit can't win. Collector's Item, We've All Been Caught, can't win. Getaway Drumley can't win. Quid Pro Quo, Hermes Allen or Briscoe could all win. But I think it would probably be disappointing if Quid Pro Quo does go and do it now. So I've waffled about everything. Briscoe would be the winner, I think. But it's loose, isn't it? Because he got battered by Champ Kylie. But it's just when he comes over with a horse, Willie, you know they've got to be better than most of the British ones, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've backed Champ Kylie for the Albert Bartlett, haven't we? But I don't know if he'll go that way now.
I've had a set
hope
on the
he
Bartlett
does.
as well. Yeah, I think he could go to 3 miles, Champ Kylie, eventually.
I like that. I say it a lot with the Albert Bartlett horses, and people think I'm mad for it. But like Penhill's 2 mile to begin with, loads of them start off over 2 miles. They've got that speed for it, and the reality is they're just that good a horse. They've got the stamina to stay, but they can do it at 2 miles because they're just class enough. So yeah, I reckon that's the way we'll go. That's what Darryl reckons as well. So fill your boots.
Nice Guy, they started him at 2 last year as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Boom.
That's good, that.
And that's what we all love. That's what we all love. Okay, so keep the eyes on that 16-1 on Quid Pro Quo at the moment. No, that's big. Even
yeah, blimey. That's drifted massively.
On 365, you might be able to get the extra place on the day, mightn't you, as well?
Yeah, he might. He's one that potentially, because even if you don't necessarily bet on the exchange, he's the sort of horse, and some horses in these races are well worth watching the exchange in the last few minutes, because if he's a 16-1 poke there and they don't fancy him, he'd be 40-1 on the exchange. If they do fancy him, he'll end up shortening into maybe 10s or 12s chance, but money doesn't always speak volume. Sometimes I'm reading into something that's not really there.
Yeah, well, it's worth looking at.
Lovely. Okay, so that's day 1 done. I'm taking it you don't want to be looking at the novices handicap hurdle at the end of the day.
I will just say one thing on the novices handicap hurdle, because four people have messaged me and said it's their best bet of the day. I'm not going to mention the names of any of them, but Alto, all 4 of them independently, don't speak to each other, all reckon this is an absolute good thing.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of people that like the Nappers Hill form at Chepstow, don't they? There's a lot of people are back off the back of that, and that form's come out in Franks. But this Alto was only a few lengths behind Nappers Hill at Sandown in the championship final at the end of the season. And then he's gone and run a pretty decent race at Ascot. But I think Jamie put it in our video saying that Fergus Gillard gave him a pretty shit ride, and he'd have that back every day of the week. He is up £4 for that, but they reckon that potentially he would have won that day, could have gone up a lot more. So quite a few people like him, but it is a 20 runner handicap in it. And he's 5-1. But I just thought it was worth mentioning because loads of people like him.
Is that Hey Johnny in that one?
Yeah, Hey Johnny's in there.
He was really impressive last time. Yeah, I quite like him as well. So, yeah, we'll have a look at that more in depth, I think.
Lovely. Okay, so that's the end of day 1. Thank you, gents. We'll knock it off and go day 2.